Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is a USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find a Porch Play Chat every Monday if you subscribe to our help me YouTube channel, be a friend on our Facebook page, or follow us on Instagram. And you can also find us now on Spotify. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. With me on the porch is Lisa Murphy. Hey, Lisa.
Hello, good morning.
And joining us today is Rachel Larimore. Rachel is an educator, consultant, speaker, researcher, and author, and her work focuses on the intentional integration of nature to support young children's holistic development by learning with nature to expand their worlds and live rich, full lives. That is like the best introduction ever. She's written 3 books: Establishing a Nature-Based Preschool, Preschool Beyond Walls, Blending Early Childhood Education and Nature-Based Learning. And she's the founder and chief visionary of Samara Early Learning, an organization focused on helping early childhood educators start nature-based schools or add nature. So today's topic, which I'm really excited about, is nature-based isn't all or nothing, the nature-based continuum. Ooh, go for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, hello. It's great to be here. I, of course, have to have my cup of tea on any porch. It's either
Yes.
hot or ice, depending on the time of year, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, that's how it goes. So here I am. It's great to be here with you both. Yeah, this idea of this nature continuum. So I've been thinking about this. I've always talked about practice on a continuum, like you start integrating nature in different ways. But I've realized lately I've gotten calls from people or comments like, I don't think I'm doing it. I don't think I'm nature based. I don't think, or, am I doing it right? And can I call myself nature based? And it kind of comes with this air of judgment of themselves or of other people. And it's like every little bit is better than nothing, right?
Nothing.
So it's like, let's start with where you are with your current situation and do what you can. Um, and there is everyone's going to be in a different place. I hear from super urban programs that are like, we're just right in the heart of the city and we don't have a lot of easy access to nature. Like, okay, what can we do to bring nature into your indoor classroom, right? That's local. Maybe that's books, maybe that's actual natural materials, right? There's different ways to bring nature in. But then maybe in the outdoor space, I mean, truly like programs with rooftop play areas. Okay, can we bring planters in? Can we have bird feeders? Like, are there ways to bring nature in and that isn't already represented? And that's okay. That's the current situation. That's different than a program that's on a organic farm in, upstate New York. They're gonna have different situations. And we can't judge each other for that. Like those children in the city need nature as much as the children in upstate New York. And that's just a random example, but right, like
Yeah.
they need that connection and we do what we can with where we are.
Which
So,
I think is a beautiful giving people permission to not only do what's possible in their existing environment, but also to make them feel like they're doing something instead of doing nothing. So it is a way to sort of baby step based on your situation. And I I always go back and we just had a Porch Play Chat on agency, that sometimes I think that, am I doing enough? Am I that that sort of feeling of not thinking you're doing it well enough goes back to their own sense of or lack of agency, that they're not doing what they can because they're afraid of failure, or they're they're not willing to try it because they're afraid of failure. And so I think we have to give them permission to do what makes sense to you and then do it and grow. Yes. Look at Lisa.
Yeah. Like Hermione, I am having a thought. And it's a little bit of a finger wag towards the early childhood just industry. And when I say industry, I'm thinking catalogs. I think a lot of times when people decide they're going to be aligned with something that's kind of a current buzz idea, a buzzword, I think, and I've never really articulated it like this, but it's like checklist syndrome. I don't have all the stuff from the catalog yet. So therefore, I'm not doing it the right way until it looks like what the catalog says, which, makes me cringe for 5 different reasons.
Yes.
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. I mean, the thing I thought of with that is like, it's not about the stuff, right? Which is what we get in the catalog. It's how we're interacting with children in that, like, do they have opportunities to use that during free play? And those materials are more open-ended and encouraging play, or are they actually so toy-based that there's just sort of one way and it doesn't encourage them to engage with it, but it also doesn't encourage interactions with the adults? And it's, I guess for me, Lisa, what came up with that when you said that was like, why? Like,
Why the
it's the
catalog?
trend, but why do I care about doing nature? And if I'm just doing it because it's trendy, then that's not really a reason to do it, right? And it won't last, and it won't work,
And
really.
I had a colleague make a comment 100 years ago. This is an ancient Lisa Murphy soundbite, but she said, "We're Montessori now because we bought a pink tower."
Oh, Lord.
And I, unfortunately, I see that same kind of superficial mindset with schools that like just align themselves with whatever is kind of the new thing. And I think it misses out on all of the depth and the intention as to why those alignment decisions were perhaps made in the first place. And then I also think that then there's a sense of, I don't have to understand the belief system because I have all of the stuff out, right? So it kind of allows me to avoid the responsibility of even really understanding it, because when you walk in, you see it. And so now the stuff or the environment is going to speak to it, and I don't have to.
Right.
That's my big
I found that when I was a preschool director, we had built this beautiful gold LEED certified building. So meaning it was very environmentally friendly. It looked gorgeous, right? People would come in and they would immediately see the building and they're like, whoa, this is amazing. We don't have this. And I was like, a building doesn't teach children.
Right.
It doesn't do anything. Like, yes, it creates a space for that. And then also I had to tell them, we're hardly ever in the building. We spend a lot of money on this and we really don't use it that much. It's like, we're outside, because that's how we teach. That's the priority for us, was the connection to nature, not this thing that distracted people. And actually, when we did workshops there, I wouldn't take people to the building until at least the second, like the afternoon of the first day, or even the second day, because I'm like, you're going to miss what's really happening, which is those teacher-child interactions, which could mean I'm not saying anything. That to me is a teacher-child interaction, right? Or what am I prompting? How am I extending? What materials am I providing? But it's that back and forth sort of pedagogical dance, if you will.
I'm having a memory of when we would go to Good Stuff for Kids years ago with the Bev Boss, and everybody would walk in with their cameras. And she was like, "But you're not allowed to take pictures. You're not." And of course, we're like, "What do you mean I'm not allowed to take pictures?" Because exactly what you just said. Then you're getting, all you're thinking is do this. We can't do this. I can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. Oh my God, this is beautiful. I wouldn't go back and do that. And you're missing, right? It's, you can, hold on, too many thoughts. The experience and the connection and the relationship and the language and the conversations that came out of maybe, yes, some very, very unique design and setup. I always got concerned when there was an assumption that we can't get to that level of relationship and connection unless I go back and make it look exactly like this.
Right.
So I fully with my heart understand why we don't go to the building until day 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and even as you're saying with Bev Boss, so one of those DVDs that she had produced at some point in the background, there was this wheel, the art wheel where like there's paper mat, right?
Yeah,
And
the
they're
big
just like,
spindle,
yeah.
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 And I was like, we need that, right? So I had someone build it for us, all of that. But here's a great example of the difference there of what you could do with that stuff, right? Bev is saying, let them put their whole body on it. Let them like immerse in it, however they need to do that, right? Where someone else could have that same wheel and say, oh no, these are the paintbrushes. You can't mix the colors, you know, you must hold them this way. So I think back to your point, Lisa, of like, it's the same stuff, but there's very different kinds of relationship happening there. The respect we have for children, the belief that they're capable, and they actually are gonna, whatever they're exploring with this play is what they need right now. And like, let's do it. You know, why hold them back? And I realize that paint example is not really necessarily nature based, but it's the same principles. Like, what are we trying to achieve with our relationships and interactions with the children? And for me with nature, it's what role does nature play in that? Right? Are we connected to place, which was our last conversation? Like, is it what they're going to experience in their life? Because if they live in the desert and we're only ever talking about the ocean, I'm like, oh, okay, right? It doesn't mean anything to me. So is it connected to their life and in all the different parts of their day, in the classroom materials, in the outdoor play area? Maybe we go out and explore outside the fence, you know, and go to local natural spaces as well. And that is a collection of practices. And I think even when we think about being play-based, right, there's even that is a continuum. I mean, free play, true free play over here. And then there are a lot of times where we're sort of in guided play, where it's a whole group and we've sort of decided this is what we're doing, but we're allowing free play within or play within that, right? So even that's a continuum. So and I think that's the intention of why, but also giving ourselves grace that there isn't, like you said, the checklist. Like, nope, you didn't do that exactly right in this moment. And everything we do in teaching, there's some trade-off often, right? Okay, if I say this right now, there's the potential I'm actually going to interrupt what they're doing. But if I say it this way, maybe it's potential for it to extend, and I have to take all, I mean, in that split second, right? All that I know about those children, all I know about what this potential question could ask and the way I phrased it and the moment that's happening, and I have to make a decision. And so if we just can't have a checklist, there's too many variables.
Well, and I think that is the permission that we have to give to teachers to not, they don't have to be perfect, right? It doesn't have to be a perfect experience in nature. It's because
Right.
there are so many variables. And just because maybe it wasn't as perfect as you wanted it to be, doesn't mean you don't do it again, right? Because there's always, I mean, you know, the second, even in a classroom, you've planned what you think the children will love, and they are there for 2.5 minutes. Well, you don't beat yourself up about that. You just say, well, that didn't work. So
Right. And reflect on, I do think it's important then to take the time to reflect on, why didn't that work?
why didn't it? Yeah.
What were there the wrong materials there? What was it, the way I prompted this? Did I give too much direction? Whatever. But a little reflection, and then okay, I'm going to try it again and tweak some things and see how it goes the next time.
Or I'll put it away for 3 months. Maybe they weren't ready yet. And then
Yeah,
I'll bring it back
exactly.
up. It's that reflection piece that I think is key, that you don't beat yourself up about it. Every day when I teach in a college classroom, every day on my way home, I reflect. What went well? What could I do better next time? Why didn't that activity work? I'm always reflecting, oh, maybe I could try this next time. And I'm not saying you were a horrible teacher today. But I'm saying what worked and what didn't work. And some days everything worked, and some days nothing worked. And so you just have to have enough confidence in yourself that you can reflect on the day or the moment and adjust. You need to be flexible.
And the other thing I think you said there, or maybe what you didn't say, was you compared to yourself the way you were yesterday. The teacher I was yesterday compared to the teacher I am today. You didn't compare to how Lisa was teaching today. You didn't
Right.
say, oh man, her lecture was great and mine was terrible, right? Like you didn't. And I think that happens a lot. We do this sort of comparison, which was it like, was it Roosevelt or someone? The comparison is the thief of joy. Like it's, so we see these amazing programs sometimes. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to be that. And then we like, I'm not that. So somehow that it becomes this shame spiral, as opposed to, I would love to be that. What could we do tomorrow or today, right? To start getting towards that. Exactly. And then
the next though, that I'm going to add to that, I call it clean closets syndrome. Like I'll get to that when the closets are clean. So we'll start working on the nature playground yard once we finish up accreditation or assessments, or we won't really be a nature-based program until we have that mud pit that's finally finished. So we're kind of in this limbo procrastination spiral, which I think can be just as detrimental.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Baby steps, pick a spot, take one step, forward motion. That's why I love that word continuum. And it kind of came on my radar later in my practice than earlier. And so that idea of like the continuum of where we started versus where we're going. And what I've started really being vocal about is that as long as I'm seeing forward motion, like we're good. It's when the stagnant and the stuck, or then the undermining of the people who are moving forward, that's when I get a little like, okay, let's have a conversation and figure out what's going on. It's not about leaving a workshop or listening to a porch chat and then jumping to that end point. It is so much a process. And I think even to that, there's times when we do take 4 steps ahead, but then we kind of settle back 1, right? And instead of seeing that as a deficit or a less than, it's that maybe I overshot the mark, but good for me. But this is where we're going to sit and get our bearings for a little bit before we take that next step.
That's exactly right.
And so instead of judging yourself or judging the process, we need to stop and celebrate what we've accomplished, right? You just need to, and know that it may take longer than you thought, right? But you're going to celebrate every step, and you're going to reflect on it, and you're going to say, okay, do we change what we were thinking about doing next based on what we've learned so far? And so it goes back to your grace word. You give yourself grace, you celebrate, but you're, what Lisa said, moving forward. So
it's a growth mindset throughout all of it. It's right. It's like, oh, I'm wanting to continue to learn and be curious. So in your intro, you said I've written 3 books. I have a 4th one that I've written with Claire Warden that's in the publisher right now.
Ooh, yeah, congratulations.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
What's the title?
But in that, and now, of course, you're going to ask the title, and I don't remember it yet. It's not out yet. It'll probably change. You know how that goes with publishing. But in that, we're talking about the different roles of nature-based educators. So not so much like the kinds of questions they ask or those kinds of interactions, but more like educators are conversationalists. They're provider of time. They're a holder of memories. They're advocates and different things like that. So part of that and underlying all of that is we talk about supporting curiosity, care, and confidence among children, but also adults. And I think curiosity is a lot of what we've been talking about. Is like, I'm just curious, like just get curious about, what if we did a little more nature? What if we spent 5 more minutes outside today? Or what if we tried having snack outside? Like, what would we need to do? Right. And even if you just open that idea and it's sort of that growth mindset, like new ideas, like, what would that look like? Rather than have to do it all. You know,
Right.
what was that, Lisa?
I said,
And it has
what
to
can
be
I say?
perfect,
It
right?
doesn't have, but
Yeah,
what
it
can I
does not.
say yes to? Yes. Yes, we can try.
Exactly.
Yes, we can stay out for 5 more minutes. Yes. And I have to make a connection here. We a recent Porch Play Chat with Peter Dargitz. He talked about the baker's dozen of how to be more of nature focused, and I find I'm locked on number one and number two, which was just go outside for a little bit and just go outside a little longer, like what you said. But the second one, which I think can be such a aha for somebody, is bringing the indoor out. Try something that you do all the time inside and just simply do it outside. Say yes to that and see where that might go. So those two chats, or this chat and his chat, are very nicely connected.
And that also, that idea of saying yes more often applies in so many ways. I mean, there's our teaching practices in terms of how we structure the day and those kinds of things, but also like think about that with risky play, or think about that even not even what I would call risky play, but like the Bev Boss example of the paint wheel. Like, what if I allowed them to use their whole body to do this right now? Like, would that be okay? Yeah, I'm gonna say yes right now. You know, I mean, obviously you're thinking through it, but how can I make this a yes? Like, okay, I don't want the paint on the wall, so I'm gonna put something up here, right, to limit, or put some bounds on it, or whatever. But how do I get to a yes? And maybe sometimes you can't get to a yes, but I think that's a great way to frame it of like, what are some ways I can say yes to all sorts of things in the day?
Yeah. And so if we can say to our listeners out there, find, do it with, I mean, if you are like, I really don't like nature, I hate being outside. Okay.
Be like, then go work at Walmart.
Yeah.
Right. Well, come on. I mean, but we got to I'm sure somebody in the nature world unpacks that. Your own stuff that's getting in the way of those yeses. Like, I don't like snakes, but you know what? I live in Florida. I've had to figure it out. That's not going to make me stay inside for the rest of my life. So there is an element of realizing, I think, what you've signed up for when you take on the role of an early childhood educator. And yes, I'm saying this with love, but if you know you got a laundry list of things that are getting in the way, this might just not be the best fit for you.
Be the right fit, right? And
so it's interesting you say that, just to add to that. So I've been obviously most of my work is focused on nature-based education approaches. And I talk about the 3 spaces of the inside classroom, the outside, and the beyond. But I also talk about those as a metaphor for our social emotional development, both with children, like we're supporting their inside, we're supporting outside, how they relate to others beyond the broader world, but also for adults. And that absolutely matters. Like, we have to do that inner work first and foremost. And it's back to that. How do I say yes? Like, I really don't like snakes. Okay. How do you say yes to going outside when there's the potential of snakes? Is it, hey, Deb, I'm going to like make this noise when I see one and I need you to come in and help because I'm out. Right? Like, if you hear me make this squeal, that means I've gone and I need you to cover, or whatever it is. Right. But that's owning our own stuff, right? While at the same time getting to a yes for children. Yes. And recognizing, okay, this is actually my stuff, and separating what is a fear and a belief I have, which is a belief, right? Versus an actual hazard or risk. And all sorting out those 3 things, right? Because often it's just our fear in our head. Now, there are some things, right, that we do have to adjust for. Like, Lisa, you have a few things in Florida that are real hazards. And so, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
alligators,
adjust accordingly. I see it now.
But the likelihood, like that's been as an adult, right? So the likelihood of me getting eaten by an alligator on my daily walk is slim to none,
Mhm.
but they're also in the water and you can see them, right?
Yeah.
So figuring out how to manage that. And I love how you said it's in my head. Like the absolute extreme worst case scenario might be what's in my head, but I have to counter that with the reality check that we're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I have this fear that I am going to be swallowed whole by the alligator and people won't even, there won't be any evidence. And
Nobody's going to know.
and nobody's
my
going to know. Right. But that's my fear. And then, okay, there truly is this hazard of an alligator that I could get hurt. How do I do this safely? How do I go for a walk? That's like, okay, I'm not going to go right up to the edge of the pond. I'm not going to, or whatever, like the time of day, like when it's, I don't know, it's finally sunny and warm and they're out sunning on the sidewalk. Like maybe I'm not going to do that or whatever. And I'm going to know how to run away. And I don't have great alligator skills. Clearly, I'm from the north. We don't have that, the whole like zigzag thing or whatever. Those are ways to reduce the risk of something that is a potential hazard. But I've moved from, I mean, gosh, we're talking
From
about
here to
reptiles.
here,
Right. Speaking of
Right.
reptiles, from that reptilian brain up to like, okay, let's have a moment of logic here.
Yes.
And that's all shifting to the yes. And that's sort of an extreme example, but it really is like, no, we can't have snack outside. Well, why not? Well, licensing says. Really? Let's see
me.
that.
Yeah.
Show me. Like they said you have to hand wash, but we can hand wash, I mean, whatever the situation is, like to slowly start to get through. The part of getting to that yes is getting through our own stuff, which is what you were just saying. Like, what is the barrier? And I mean, with all this nature thing, with play, everything we're talking about, children are not the barrier. It is adults and
It's our stuff.
and our own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Rachel, this has been amazing. So don't go anywhere while I close this out. So, and if you want to learn more about IPA USA, and we have an upcoming conference September 25th through 28th in Greenville, South Carolina, go to our website at ipausa.org to learn more about that and to be a friend and to follow us and to whatever the other one is, subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's so many. Um, please join us in our advocacy work for play. And until next time, keep on playing.